Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily presented by eBay. I'm Dave DuFour here with Zena, Keita, and Baraheni. Coming up, it's our first games of the week of the season. We got our picks in. We're going to talk about the biggest games of the week for us. And I sit down with Sam Amick to go inside access on the Denver Nuggets, the Clippers, and if the Kings are going to blow it up. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Daily. Welcome back, Zena. Welcome back, S. We are back every day from here on out, guys.
The Kings absolutely should blow it up, by the way, just to your preview.
Listen, whether they blow it up or not,
keep it together for our entertainment.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Well, but we got to worry about Kings fans, right? I hope that they at least if they're not good, at least be fun. Like, this is my entire thing about having a bad team. Yeah. And it was such a bright spot, those Beam team years. That those year
Beam
and a half
team
that we had.
Beam team
it was like not a full year.
They had those couple years of success. And by the way, I will say that in my chat with Sam, like he brings up just how short-lived it was and how weird it's gotten since. So we kind of went deep there. But
Westbrook will be fun. We'll say
Westbrook,
that.
Absolutely.
He's going to raise the floor, I guess. But also it just adds to the weirdness, in my opinion. Like, you know, you're going to have Russ, Zach Lavine, DeMar DeRozan,
Dennis Schroeder.
I feel like it could also be like a highlight package. Like some ridiculous plays that happen and come out of Sacramento. So, I think it'll be entertaining.
It's going to be one of those ones where if you watch the 10-minute clip on YouTube, you're like, how did Sacramento lose this game by 20? But they,
I don't think it's going to be like that. I think we're all going to know that defense is going to be awful. Guys, it's opening week. It's like a holiday around here. And, on these Monday shows, we always like to look ahead. You know, this is the nice thing about doing this every single day. We get to look ahead at the biggest games of the week, the stuff that we're most excited about, and obviously opening week. It's our first chance to see a lot of these teams. And I'll just go ahead and jump right in. Guys, Friday night, we're going to get our first chance to see the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. Now, other years, I would have maybe done this as a bit. Like, this would have been a joke. Oh, why? The Hawks and the Magic? Come on, Dave. But I actually think this is the battle in the East. It's not necessarily obvious, right? Like it's not. We don't expect necessarily these teams are going to make it to the finals, but it's sort of the fight for who's next.
Or do we?
Well, maybe, right? Like there's a chance. It depends on, and I believe we're going to talk Cavs Knicks, but it depends on the Cavs and Knicks. But I think this is the teams that are going to be fighting for that 3, 4, 5 spot right behind them. And it's a little bit of it's an interesting mix of styles, but also both of these teams have some new additions that I'm excited to see. Yep. I want to see how Desmond Bane changes the dynamic for the Orlando Magic, especially that offense, which struggled, especially when Jalen Suggs was out last year. And then we've talked extensively about the Atlanta Hawks, the changes that they've made. Jalen Johnson coming back is huge. What is it going to look like with Porzingis out there?
Porzingis looks healthy too. He looks really good in preseason.
And look, we haven't really hit on it, but like Trae Young theoretically is a dark horse MVP candidate if things pop off, for the Atlanta Hawks. I'm hitting the gas here.
She mentioned it.
I know.
She called it out. Yeah.
I'm hitting the gas here on the Hawks, but I do think that that's a fascinating matchup, and it's fun that we're getting that in the first couple days of the season, because I think these teams are going to be so much more fresh, and when we see it later on, because just feels like this is going to be a playoff series. Like this would be the NBA TV playoff series. Let's just be honest here. Yeah. And I think we're going to wind up having an opportunity to see how these teams have grown over the course of the season. So this is one of those, put a pin in it and we'll come back to it in like 8 months and watch it again.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned the new additions, but I think I'm fascinated to see how offensively the Hawks look, just because of adding Kristaps Porzingis. Like again, the staggered screen stuff that they do, 77 actions with like Trae Young and Jalen Johnson and Kristaps Porzingis, like all that stuff. The amount of options that they have offensively now compared to what they had last year. It's a completely different story. And then for the Bane situation in Orlando, I feel like in the preseason, it's been a bit of a work in progress for Paolo and Franz to adjust to the fact that they have a 40% shooter on the opposite side. They kind of forgot that they have that a little bit, but I'm excited to see how they adjust to it. I think it'll be a work in progress, but it'll look good. I don't
know how much is forgetting, by the way. Because Paolo can be a black hole. Like, let's not act like he can't, right? But I do think that this is an opportunity to break that habit, and especially because of Bane.
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just love the fact that we are getting a peek at both of these teams because both teams offensively have picked up. It's weird. Magic picked up exactly what they needed in their shooting, right? Whereas Atlanta picked up something I don't know if they knew they needed. I don't know if they knew they needed a pick and pop option out of Kristaps Porzingis, but they now have it. And so both of these teams are going to have the opportunity to essentially level up. And what's interesting about the two teams in front of them for the Eastern Conference, the Cavs and the Knicks, they didn't have much addition. Right. They didn't have a ton of change over the course of the summer. So it's like these two teams are now elevated and are trying to catch up. We'll see how much does that balance out over continuity that the Cavs and the Knicks have.
Yeah. All right. Who's up next? Zena, we were just saying Cavs Knicks.
We were just talking about Cavs and Knicks, and I want to talk about the Cavs and the Knicks. That's going to be the game I'm going to watch on Wednesday night. I really feel terrible that as we were talking our NBA conference previews, I forgot about the Cavs, which is crazy because they are an Eastern Conference favorite. But I think it's because they were so quiet in the moves that they made, in the moves they didn't make over the course of the summer. It was really all about getting healthy for them and making sure that they have all of their personnel when the season starts. And they've been looking good. They've been looking kind of unbothered in the preseason so far. And I think there's a level of confidence that comes with the fact that they were the best team in the East last year. And they kind of just stuttered to an end versus, their schemes weren't necessarily working, et cetera. We didn't really get to see full strength Cavs towards the end of the year. So that probably helps. I'm loving everything I'm hearing about this constraints led approach from Alex Sarama, their assistant coach has completely revolutionized the NBA and now is about to go do it in the WNBA, being the coach of the Portland Fire. But this is what kind of put them above everyone else in that they were reactive last year. And I'm very curious of what that's going to look like against a New York Knicks team that is now coached by Mike Brown, that's going to have an emphasis on defense, that's going to have an emphasis on, really creating situations in which the Cavs are really going to have to react. The Knicks, similar, didn't have a ton of pickups. Jordan Clarkson, I don't think is going to necessarily move the needle for them, but Mike Brown is now at the helm. We're going to see how he navigates not being Tom Thibodeau of running players into the ground, basically, but also having the Tom Thibodeau offensive approach. So these two teams going up against each other, I feel like both of them have a little bit to prove to each other, especially now that Boston's kind of out of the mix and Indiana's out of the mix. We'll see what happens. I'm excited, though, to find out who will battle in this situation all season long. Will this be another OKC Cav type of matchup that we were very excited for last year?
You think we find out right away what kind of depth the Knicks added, right? Are we going to find out early?
Is
do you think they play
11
guys maybe in game one just to kind of prove a point? Hey, it's a different regime here. We're going to do things differently. I think that after multiple years in a row of the Cavs doing this too big thing, and this is the year that it has to pay off. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to tear it down and look to move on. And then the funny thing is the Knicks match up pretty well that way, right? You can play Mitchell Robinson and Karl Anthony Towns because of their rebounding, because of their passing. And this is going to probably be the conference finals, I'm guessing.
I think so. By the way, the double big thing, I saw Ime Udoka credited the Rockets for inventing double big lineups. I just want to say that's just not true. First of all,
the
double big lineups
basketball, right?
Unless he's talking about Hakeem Olajuwon. Unless he's talking about Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson, then maybe. Okay, sure. The Rockets invented double big lineups. But no, it wasn't Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun the first double big lineups in NBA history. That's just not the case. Sorry, Rockets fans. I didn't mean to break it to you. There are other teams that are also doing the same thing. Just
I'm going to give him the
benefit
of the doubt and assume he's talking historically.
Amazing. What a claim. Is that he couldn't have meant it that way? That's pretty amazing.
That's what I think too. It must have been a miscommunication in terms of what he said. Either way, I agree that this is probably the conference finals. That's why it's such an exciting game to see how these two teams stack up. Again, like this is a Cavs team that is a well-oiled machine. They didn't make too many changes this offseason. You want to see how the internal development happens for them. And then for the Knicks, it's like, do you really stack up against the Cavs in a major way, given some of the depth improvements that you had, given that like this offensive philosophy is going to change for you, hopefully this season too. So I'm excited to see it. Hopefully it's a good game. I will say, in terms of double big lineups, I think Evan Mobley has looked great in the preseason so far. He's looking more confident in terms of looking jacked.
He's stepping out way more.
Yes, he's stepping out and taking threes too, which is good. Yeah,
that's huge. Yeah.
So good sign for the Cavs.
Yeah. Okay, S, what's your game this week?
All right, I got to make my pick. Okay, so look, I love the rookies. I'm always watching out for the rookies, and I think one of the best rookie battles is happening on Wednesday night. It is the San Antonio Spurs versus the Dallas Mavericks. It's Cooper Flagg versus Dylan Harper, but it's also Cooper Flagg versus Victor Wembanyama. It is just going to be an awesome matchup, a Texas showdown, if you will. There's a lot of like theatrical elements.
It's a rodeo.
It's everything. Yes, and everything. Look, outside of the theatrical elements of like this being two rookies going head to head and two young stars going head to head, these are two really fascinating teams in the Western Conference. You think of the San Antonio Spurs, who, for all intents and purposes, are trying to make the playoffs this year. They're trying to take that next step. Wemby is trying to lead them there. So how do they look on game one? Especially because we don't get to see him and Fox work together. How does their depth work together? How is Dylan Harper making plays? How is Steph Castle, who's looked good in the preseason? Both those guys have looked really, really good, taking up some of the usage that Fox would have. How do those guys play off of Wemby? And then for the Mavericks, you don't have Kyrie, but you have this massive team that's going to be maybe one of the biggest teams, if not the biggest starting lineup in the NBA. Maybe the Rockets have a claim to that. Shout out to Ime Udoka with the double big lineups, but
they're quadruple big. They were playing Jabari Smith at the 2 the other day,
guard.
And it's like, hang on a second now. I'm into
they
that.
are massive. But the Mavs are equally huge in their own way with Derek Lively and Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg in that front court. And I think it's really interesting to see how they'll work offensively. I think the offense has been a work in progress in the preseason. The spacing has looked a little wonky, but there's no question that both of these teams have a chance to be, I would say, like top 5 defenses in the NBA, just because one side, Wemby, the other side, you have Anthony Davis and this massive front court. So if you like a rookie showdown, if you like defense, you got to watch this game. So
here's my thing, Zena. The Mavericks have nobody who can dribble except for D'Angelo Russell, and and for this game in particular, the Spurs kind of have some dogs when it comes to like point of attack defense. I also have watched the Mavs and felt better about them in the preseason, but I don't feel good about this one.
Yeah, no, we've seen Jaden Hardy do that stutter step thing, get to the basket. You're like, okay, maybe. See Ryan Nembhard do a few things in the preseason as well. But it's literally, if Cooper Flagg gets off the floor, like, what are we doing? What's happening? And it's interesting. These two teams is going to be like a battle of the front courts versus the back courts. Even though, yes, there's Wemby. Wemby sometimes plays like a backcourt player in the way that he pulls up anyways. But Dallas could dominate with their defense, their rebounding, their size. And that could be enough to overwhelm teams this year. But as you mentioned, the skill and the speed of the backcourt in San Antonio matched along with Victor Wembanyama taking an offensive leap could be enough to overwhelm not only from an offense perspective, but then again, as was mentioning, the defense aspect of just protecting rim or being able to get rebounds and going. I am very curious because these two teams are going to be the wild cards in the West, in my opinion. They're going to be the teams where you genuinely have no idea just how much a Cooper Flagg can elevate them, just how much Victor Wembanyama can elevate them. So this is a battle of whose future is that on the line here?
Are you
what
betting
can we
on?
actually, are you betting on this? How much do you believe in either one of these prospects, or not prospects anymore, but like these players, and being able to change the trajectory of their teams?
Wemby in the preseason. Okay. It's year 3 Wemby. He's looking a lot like year 3, year 4 Giannis. Physically, just knocking guys out of the way,
aggressive
in a way that he didn't do 9 months ago. I mean, this is clearly he's been in the gym putting on some muscle, like he's been working out. Zena, when we did our preview, we talked about the top 5 players in the West, and you had Wemby there. I think accurate, right? I actually think that's accurate.
Absolutely.
I think we might be sleeping on the Spurs because of how good Wemby looks. Like, what if this is the year that Wemby is like
he's unstoppable? I think you and I were on the same page about this. The Spurs honestly could be. I absolutely think top 6. And they also have this, like, I love Jared Weiss's piece on San Antonio, particularly Wemby, right? When they talked about watching his work ethic and that trickling into the rest of the team. And what Mitch Johnson was saying about how Victor Wembanyama works is basically setting the bar for how they want to operate. And defense is a non-negotiable. All of that is giving me this. I'm reading the tea leaves, y'all. And the Spurs are going to shock some folks. Get ready.
They know
I
how to
will
win
also say,
down there.
like, there is some like worry about spacing and shooting. And I think that's, there's validity to that, but like, Julian Champagnie, I think, is an underrated role player for them. He knocks down his shots pretty well. I think if you think of obviously like Kelly Olynyk, a big backup big who can stretch the floor, Wemby himself should be able to do it. Lindy Waters, I think Devin Vassell can knock down shots. Keldon Johnson has been a really inconsistent shooter, but has shown the propensity to like space the floor at the corners at the very least, like can knock down a shot. Harrison Barnes had a really good shooting year last year. So I think that's a little overblown in terms of their offense.
These guys are going to have space when they play with Wemby. Yeah. That's the thing, right? Like, he has got a ton of gravity. So I think the shooting probably works itself out. Guys, for our Bet MGM picks of the week, we're going to pick these games. Let's just pick the winners. I think that I'll go. I'm going to go Hawks over the Magic in the first matchup, even though it's a road game for them. I'm going to go Knicks over Cavs. I think the Knicks might just score a lot. It's going to be hard for the Cavs to keep up. And then I'm going to go Wemby and the Spurs over the Mavericks. I'm just feeling it with Wemby this year.
I think I'm going to go Magic over Hawks. Okay.
Hater.
It's at home, Let's see the Desmond Bane debut. I'm going to go with Cleveland over New York. I think just because this is a statement game for Cleveland, make sure, hey, we're serious about this season. Let's rock. And then I am going to go San Antonio over Dallas. I think that'll be a pretty easy win. Not an easy win, but it's an easy decision, in my opinion.
Yeah. I feel like we're doing a clean sweep when it comes to the Spurs and the Mavs. They just feel like the team that's a little bit more put together at this point.
Yes.
Than the Mavs.
AD's still got his training camp weight, right? Like he's not slimmed down 15 pounds yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen. Yeah, I don't think we've seen enough in the preseason to be like, oh yeah, they look great and gelled together yet. So, I think we're going to be split on the other two. So I'm going to take Atlanta over the Magic. I do think the Hawks have, and in a similar vein, I'm also taking the Cavs over the Knicks. I think both of those teams, the Hawks and the Cavs, have things to prove in various ways. And I think they're going to want to come out with some dominant wins to show that it was all worth it. Whether it was the fact that the Cavs made no moves or barely any moves, and the Hawks made a big move. So we'll see.
All right. Well, the preseason's over. Let the games begin, guys. We are ready. We're back every single day. Yeah. Guys, stick around after the break. I went deep with Sam Amick on the Nuggets and how they feel like they're going to win the title this year, why we can't sleep on the Clippers, even though there's an aspiration investigation, and why the Kings are probably going to blow it up. All right, preseason's over. Training camp's done. We got games coming up. Here to talk about it and what's going to happen this season, senior national NBA writer Sam Amick from The Athletic. Sam, what's up, buddy?
Dave DuFour, great to see you, sir. Happy NBA season.
Yeah, I'm really pumped to get to some real games, although preseason had some moments. You got around a little bit in training camp and preseason. I know you saw a Lakers game. You were at their media day, spent some time with the Clippers, spent some time with the Nuggets, spent some time with the Kings. I want to start with the Nuggets. You just had a piece up the other day at The Athletic where you talked about how the organization has sort of restructured in the last 6-8 months, and started with firing of Coach Michael Malone and General Manager Calvin Booth. And now it seems to have coalesced in this group that's main purpose in life is to make Nikola Jokic happy. How happy is Nikola Jokic after the summer that the Nuggets had?
I think he's in a good place. It's funny, the one you asked that day, you feel like if you went into the Nuggets facility, they should maybe have like a little meter on the wall where you can constantly track, the big fella. Like, he's that important to what they do. We know how incredible he is. And so last year, from two standpoints, was pretty problematic for the Nuggets in the Nikola Jokic business. And it's because the way I see it, they introduced two elements that no organization should want when you're trying to keep a superstar in a good place, which is dysfunction and a lack of depth on the roster. Mm-hmm. And so, as you know, and as I think a lot of listeners know, the dysfunction part was, you mentioned that they fired Booth and Malone late in the regular season. Those two guys had been having a hard time for years, disagreeing about roster construction, disagreeing about culture, and about really anything and everything. And that had bled throughout the group. And it just left them in the type of place that, if you're a guy like Joker, I think even quietly, you're not enjoying that experience, and you want the focus to be on maximizing what everybody can bring to the table. So David Allen becomes the coach. Ben Tenzer becomes the interim GM at the time. Ben, just to give folks a taste of who he is, had been with the organization for 16 years, very strong on the salary cap, very strong on relationships, and a guy who is trusted and respected, but also real collaborative, which is something they needed at that moment. To fast forward to the summer, after they beat the Clippers in the 7-game first round, after they pushed the Thunder in the second round and kind of looked like title contenders again, and came so close to getting to the conference finals, they elevate Ben to that top front office position, but they put a guy alongside him named John Wallace. And the important part about John is that like Ben, like David Adelman, he has history with the program. He was with Tim Conley in the previous iteration of the Nuggets front office, the one that drafted Joker and Jamal Murray and went and got Aaron Gordon. So John had this history with the Nuggets, went with Tim to the Timberwolves for 3 years. They bring John back to essentially be, the co-top executive for the Nuggets, and just is another slice of life on John. He was, if you remember, Dave, Georgetown point guard. Yeah, back in the day, played with Jeff Green, played with Roy Hibbert, hit a big three to help them get to the Final Four back then. It's a fascinating mix, front office wise, of kind of personality and really the spirit being teamwork from the top on down, which is what they didn't have up, at that level last year. So all of which is to say, man, a lot of changes where they wanted to make Joker feel like things were functional, things were collaborative, things were healthy. And again, I think he's in a good place right now.
Well, then they went out and got people too, right? Like this wasn't just a philosophical change at the top. I think the biggest move, obviously, upgrading from Michael Porter Jr. to Cam Johnson. That fit is going to be perfect, Sam. I mean, it's just you add a guy who is a very smart player, always in the right spot, more consistent as a shooter, is not as streaky. Defensively, just holds up a little bit better. I don't know. How are you feeling about the Nuggets and like the way they look around Jokic?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're dead on the court, Dave. I mean, the narrative the past couple of years was when they lost Bruce Brown after the championship, when KCP went, bye-bye. Then the depth was a conversation around the Nuggets for the longest time. And it's no different than any other superstar where you're saying, like, you got to give these guys help. And so, Calvin Booth had tried to go the younger route and essentially saw draft prospects as kind of the cheat code to roster construction. And then, with some of those guys, it just hasn't worked out. Now, Christian Brown is an absolute success story, but this new crew goes out and they get, Bruce Brown comes back. So you have that reunion. You mentioned Cam Johnson, Tim Hardaway Jr., who people kind of quietly forget had some big time moments last year, and they actually see him playing a pretty big role. And specifically, they're excited about the relief that he can bring Jamal Murray. There's a conversation about Jamal, all the depth discussion for the most part focuses on Joker. I think you'd probably agree. And I had David Adelman tell me that he actually thinks one of the kind of, the worst or the part in that conversation where people are missing the mark is that Jamal is the one who had to lead the second unit way too often because of the problems with depth.
Right.
That will not be the case this time around. Last but definitely not least is you got Jonas Valanciunas. They finally go out and get a legitimate big man who, I honestly, Dave, I don't think he's going to play big minutes every single night, but it does give you a guy who, if you need to give Joker a break and try to prioritize the playoffs, Jonas can go out and get you 25.
Well, how many times do we watch him pull Jokic with a 20-point lead and he has to come back in because the other team mounted a comeback? And that's, to me, where Valanciunas comes in huge
100%.
for them, right? You can feed him.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah. But you can feed him. He can rebound. There's a lot of stuff there that I think Valanciunas brings. But back to your point.
Well, and to kind of bring it back into the new front office, which is a big part of this story, they just barely landed the plane, so to speak, when it comes to Jonas. When they do the trade with the Kings to get him for Dario Saric, they almost immediately hear that he actually wants to go play in Greece, which makes no sense because he has an NBA contract. So he had to navigate this situation. They eventually actually flew overseas to spend time with Jonas. I think that was after the deal got done, but they settled it down and painted the picture for him of why he was so important. But those are the types of moves that I think people outside looking in had kind of been wanting the Nuggets to find a way to pull off for quite some time. And it's on paper. We'll see if it works as well as a lot of people think it will. But it does have people feeling like they are legitimately back in that title contending mix right now.
You mentioned Jamal Murray, and I actually think that he is the overlooked piece of this Nuggets team every single time because of Jokic. Jokic's star shines so bright that we forget about Jamal Murray and how important he is. And I think Jamal Murray has been part of the problem the last couple of seasons, too. It's not just lack of depth. It's that Jamal Murray has come into camp not in good shape, dealt with injuries that maybe are because of that. I don't know, but it takes him a while to ramp up. Is this the year that they're going to get off great start? Jamal Murray comes out ready to go and it makes their season smoother? Because it does seem like the last couple of seasons, they haven't looked like the Nuggets to start the year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I chatted with Jamal in San Diego, which I forget if we mentioned that. They did their camp down in San Diego. And, it's one of those team building type things. I stayed at this incredible hotel right on the water and the vibe was good. And so when I talked with Jamal, he seemed to be like Joker in a very good place. First of all, from a rest standpoint, you're talking about last summer having played in the Olympics and had a disappointing finish with the Canadian team. But even individually, he did not have the role that he thought he was going to have. He didn't play very well. He dealt with injury. He talked about how health last season, it definitely had a carryover effect into the Nuggets season once that got rolling. And he's feeling really good right now. This is right up your alley, Dave. I don't know if you knew this about him. He's an MMA type guy. He likes to.
It's gonna be something violent.
He likes to throw those hands a little bit.
Yeah.
I asked him. I was like, "Man, you got hands, huh?" He's like, "Man, I got hands. I got feet. I got all of it." So he's in a good place. He's a dad now, which I know he's enjoying. And we'll see kind of what that translates to on the floor. But I think at minimum, the rest for him and not having the international experience like he had a year ago has got to help.
I think it's an important season for Jamal Murray in Denver. I just think that he's got to like this. He should be an all-star this year. And that should be the expectations that he has that sort of season. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I hear you. It's funny. I think I'm at peace with I'm at peace with his legacy is like, no, he doesn't. I don't think he has to be an all-star. I think he has to be the guy who was an all-star in the playoffs, like he was when they won the championship. Okay. Like he was remarkable. I just legitimately don't know if for some reason he is not trying to question him, but like, I don't know if he can play at that level from beginning to end. And if you're the Nuggets and you got to pick one, you're certainly going to pick the back end of the season.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. But part of this is because he's constantly dealt with these little injuries that he's picked up, during the regular season. I just think if he can find a way to avoid those, he's got the talent to do it. Okay. Last little bit about the Nuggets, because in your piece, I found it interesting that you brought up Nikola Jokic. His contract ends in 2027. Okay. I have never once thought that Nikola Jokic would leave the Denver Nuggets and go to another NBA team. But is there a concern that he might leave the Nuggets in a couple years?
They are very confident. They get, understandably, they wish this wasn't part of the conversation. I always push back by saying it's pretty simple. When your superstar signs the extension, then people quiet down and don't talk about it. So Joker did not sign it this summer, but it made all the sense in the world financially for him to wait.
Right.
The thing that I think if you were going to nitpick his messaging when he was directly asked about whether he plans on signing the extension next summer, was he kind of went off into this riff about how he thinks these contracts are the reward for the work you do and that they basically work themselves out. He did dodge the question a little bit, but then yes, let's make sure people know. He said, I plan on being, it was kind of charming. He said Nugget forever. And then he questioned himself and he was like, Nuggets forever? I don't know. Like he was trying to figure out how to say it, English being the second language, and he said he wants to be there. If he doesn't sign an extension next summer, like if we are talking a year from now and he doesn't, then there's no way it's not a conversation because now you're in the last year of your deal. So it was a little strange that he wouldn't just say, yeah, that's probably what I'll do or whatever. But, they are very confident. He, again, seems to be in a good place. I think the only part where I have continued to monitor this situation is that it's like everything we said at the start of this conversation, Dave, like it was an extremely dysfunctional year last year. And again, the roster, was lacking depth in the kind of way that made life hard on him and made his workload a lot bigger than I think he hoped for it to be. Those are the kinds of things that, if left unchecked, are going to create issues and eventually could change the mood of a guy like Joker. But to their credit, it's kind of what the entire story was about. They went to great lengths to try to have a culture reset and to fix that roster. And we'll see now if they got it back in a good direction.
All right, let's go to one of the other teams with title aspirations, the Los Angeles Clippers. You spent a little bit of time with them. They made some big changes. Obviously moving on from Norm Powell, bringing in John Collins, Brook Lopez. They got bigger. I think that their big takeaway from losing to the Nuggets was they needed to be bigger because Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic are huge. I think that they look on paper like third or fourth best team in the West. How did you feel? Like, what did you come away feeling about the Clippers after you spent some time with them?
Well, so I hadn't seen them in person since the controversy broke. And obviously that had been something that we'd focused on a lot and reported on a lot. And even from a human experience, Dave, it was almost comical they played the Kings. I live near Sacramento, and I walk in the building and I see all these Clippers people that I haven't seen since last season. And it kind of reminded you like, oh yeah, there's a basketball team here. There's, it's not just, spreadsheets talking about where the money went between different, massive companies. And that controversy had been the focus. When I turned my attention to the hoops, I just got reminded that like, damn, this roster is really good. The depth that you talked about, the night that they played the Kings, John Collins went off the bench. I think he had 24. Brooke Lopez had a really good night. When I spent a few minutes in the locker room, chatted with Chris Paul for a little bit, maybe to Zubac, and tried to pick their brains about the feeling in light of all the focus that had been around their team. I was struck by the fact that, like, to say that they're not distracted by it is an understatement. They almost forget it's there, and the mood again was really good, and they feel like they have something pretty dangerous. Nobody's predicting a championship here, but James Harden seems to be excited. On the way out, I kind of made a comment to him about how good they looked, and he smiled and he goes, "Man, we don't even have Brad or Bogey yet." Now that's Bradley Beal and Bogdanovic. So the depth, and I know this is like the depth episode. We keep talking about depth with all these teams, but the Indiana OKC finals showed you that, like, the way the game is being played right now is depth is playing a big part, and just having a bunch of guys who could be dangerous, and the Clippers have that. They have a fantastic coach in Ty Lue. They got Jeff Van Gundy going crazy, controlling the defense on the sideline. And so, it was just one night. It was just the preseason. But they put a whooping on the Kings and have overall looked really good. And I think they're going to be dangerous.
Okay, look, the NBA investigation aside, what do you think about Kawhi Leonard? Like, do they have a plan for him this season? Yeah. Do they have a plan for him this season? Like, what's the expectation as far as number of games go? I know that they want him ready for the playoffs, right? Like, that's been their blueprint since he got there. This is a guy that hasn't really been able to put together a 65 game season. And so last year, he shows up after the surgery, starts the season. I think he winds up playing like 37 games or something in a regular season. I'm sure that they want more than that this year, but did they land on any sort of a number, or did you get an idea?
I didn't. I wish I had a great answer for you there. My goodness, right? The way he looks right now, and I'm sure this would be a mistake, but I'd be tempted to go old school and just let him play. That doesn't work for Kawhi. This is the captain of load management, and mostly with good reason. So I don't know how many games we're talking. I will say that the writer in me, who does enjoy, storylines being interesting, is it would make for a hell of a time for Kawhi to go Iron Man style and to just absolutely, be kind of a wrecking ball in the league basketball wise while this investigation was going on. Obviously, the entire investigation is focused on the existential question of, not only what was given to him and what wasn't, but really kind of this philosophical thing of, like, is he worth all the trouble? You know what I mean? Like, if you go back to 2019 and getting him in free agency and having to get Paul George because that's who Kawhi wanted. And this has been an unfulfilling era for the Clippers after a time of unprecedented excitement for what they thought they were going to be. We are all unofficially, I think, acting as if, we already know the ending to this basketball storyline, that they didn't get the job done, but they're still here. So that's the part to me that thinks it would be wild if he was an absolute monster, if James played well, if they were as good as I think they could be, that would be something.
Yeah, Kawhi, his playoff run, I will say he clearly wasn't 100% in the playoffs. His shots, the shots that he's taking are so hard. Ben Taylor, Thinking Basketball, did a really good breakdown on how much difficulty he had, but also he's so good it didn't really matter. Like, the defense was all over him. He still was super effective. We were talking in our season previews. The wildest outcome from this is Kawhi Leonard plays 65 games and is like an MVP candidate because the Clippers are really good. As far as punishments go for the Clippers, I don't think any of us really expect much. I'm really excited to see them play basketball because I do think they're going to be a fun and interesting team. How's the Bradley Beal fit going to work for them? I mean, they've talked a lot about how they need him to play some defense, and we haven't seen Bradley Beal do that in a while. Like, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of walked away. Listen, part of it is the cognitive dissonance of, like, we haven't seen Brad for so long. I don't even know what Brad is anymore right now. Again, just preseason, just one game, but I kind of walked away going, all right, well, it's a good problem to have, but I don't know if they need Brad, now over the course of 82 games and having a guy who can shoot the lights out, for sure, that'll come in handy. But I think you need to see where he's at first. I do think he's going to play soon. In fact, I thought, excuse me, I think it was reported that he was going to play in the final preseason game. But that's another one where even beyond what he can give you on the floor, I think James certainly wanted him there. Kawhi wanted him there. And he's a guy with a lot of respect around the league. And I think, his friends and teammates would like to see him have some kind of renaissance here. So we'll see how it goes.
Before we get out of here, can I ask you, what are the Sacramento Kings doing? They signed Russell Westbrook to a 1-year minimum deal, which raises their floor. Just from a personality standpoint, I think Russell Westbrook walks in, raises their floor a little bit. They signed Keegan Murray to a 5-year extension. Good young player, good asset. Are they going to blow this thing up this year? I mean, I know scouts have been attending their games because they're looking at all these guys that might be available.
Right.
But it just feels like they're not even really stuck in the middle anymore. They're kind of stuck backside of the middle. And that's even worse.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a bunch of tough contracts to move, and it's a strange time, a transition time, because like Scott Perry, the GM now, longtime NBA executive from the Knicks and the Pistons and the Magic, Scott didn't build this thing, and now has to figure out, Zach Lavine's got 2 years left, almost $100 million. DeMar DeRozan is kind of on an expiring. He's guaranteed about $10 million next season. Domantas Sabonis, you're still building around, but I think if somebody threw the world at him, they would certainly listen. So it's a matter of they're preaching patience with the fan base. I think that's partly why you go ahead and just let Doug Christie try to see what he can do as a head coach. I reported the other day that his contract, it's a 2+1, on the lower end money wise, to where, it just feels like this is a kind of passing the time portion of the program, where and Russ plays into that. Like, honestly, I wrote the other day, it's fine. Like, this team is headed towards irrelevance anyway. And I'm not even trying to be funny. It's just, I think the fans will probably enjoy watching Russell Westbrook play. Like, knowing that the ceiling on this season is going to be pretty low. And, in terms of the longer view, it's just a question of, are they going to be able to get off any of these contracts in a way that helps them pivot more quickly? Or are they literally going to just have to bide their time for the next 2 years while these contracts come off the books? Because a lot of talented, accomplished veterans that I don't think are going to be able to make a lot of noise together, and who, we'll see what kind of market these guys have. Malik Monk obviously was part of the talks with the Warriors to get Jonathan Kuminga. Even the Kuminga subplot, Dave, tells you.
Is that still on the table? Maybe,
Yeah. Well, the Warriors don't want Monk. And so that part, is a hurdle. But yes, but I also, not only is Kuminga and that pursuit still on the table, and that'll have to be a February thing, but that shows you ideally, what Scott and his front office are trying to do was, lock up Keegan Murray because he's a young prospect, and then start adding to it. They were hoping to bring Kuminga in. They were going to move Keegan to the 3, which is something they know that he would like. And then you'd kind of you'd have a little bit of momentum. Now that didn't happen. And so now they got to be patient again. But listen, it's all, a lot of it anyway, is the product of the De'Aaron Fox trade last year, where it still remains very confusing why not only okay, you decide to trade a guy like that, but that they went after a guy like Zach Lavine that did not help you pivot and really put you in this little purgatory session here. That was the previous front office. You can debate who was pulling the strings there. I mean, on paper, it was Monty McNair with Wes Wilcox, but Vivek Ranadive was definitely very involved in that move, and it's put him in a tough spot.
You see, do you know any teams that might be interested in Lavine or DeRozan? Have you heard anything?
Lavine, no. DeRozan, I just think it's like, how does he look the next couple months? You have to, when a guy's 36, you're going to have to like make sure he's good still. Dave, I looked at this the other day. He's averaged 20 plus for 12 straight seasons.
It's amazing.
Like, it's crazy. And so I think he was 22 last year. Like, if he's still the bucket getter at 36 and he looks pretty good, then yeah, like one of these playoff teams might come try to get him. I think he's the easiest one to have the conversation about. Zach, the optics around Zach could be even more challenging this season because Doug Christie is really trying to get this group to play defense and trying to get them to do the types of things that they're not really known for doing. I told somebody the other day, really Dennis Schroeder and Keegan are the only ones with any defensive credentials among their main group. And Doug is really trying to have that be the thing that, that distinguishes them and helps them in the West. And I just don't see it. These guys are not young, moldable prospects. These guys have been doing this for a minute.
Yeah, I'd just be trying to just get as many buckets as you can and hope.
Yeah.
hope they miss on the other end. All right, Sam, thank you for hanging out, helping us kick off opening week here at the NBA Daily. Guys, go and read Sam over at The Athletic. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe this video on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.